Student Education Work Session, February 26, 2025, at 6:08 p.m. We could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Number 2, approval of the agenda. A motion to approve. John, second. And Bob. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? You abstain. Melinda?
Hey,
Hey. All right. Number 3, public comment. Do we have any in-person public comment? Emma?
My name is Emma Quick. I'm from Durham. I am here today to publicly voice some concerns about the budget. Some of this will be repetition of my comment from the Student Achievement Committee meeting earlier today, but this meeting is actually recorded, so I'm going to say it again. For those who are unaware, we've been asking for virtual access to the 4 p.m. committee meetings, but have not been successful in having the board agree to that yet, so I made that comment earlier at the 4 p.m. meeting of Student Achievement Committee. I see that the prospective budget indicates that you plan on still closing Memorial School next year and moving forward with the swing space plans. However, to me, it looks as though the only money that is following the students from Memorial to Strong and Lyman is primarily salary. The additional money from Memorial's budget appears to shift up to the high school. I emailed asking that per pupil expenditures be calculated by school for the upcoming school year so that parents can rest assured that their child is receiving as much funding support that they would have been at Memorial in the swing space. I was told that's not calculated by school, but that I could look at historical data, which I did. My concern is that the historical data does not account for the changes to the student population that you're making for next school year. The historical data does show that Strong's per pupil expenditures are the lowest in district at around $25,000 per student. The elementary schools are around $27,000 per student, and the high school is around $29,000 per student. I understand that there are different expenses at each level that might change the per pupil expenditures. However, to me, it appears that the gap widens for next year with more money being removed from students at Strong and shifted up to the high school. It looks like per pupil expenditure at Strong would probably be around $23,000 and at the high school around $31,000 per student, which means that not only are you planning on removing teaching resources from the students who you have forced to transition multiple years in a row, but you're also removing funding from them at the same time. I am, however, not a finance person, which is why I asked for you to make that calculation for the upcoming school year. These are your plans, and I would like to see where and how in this budget you are supporting the students that are being directly affected by both the interim and swing space plans that you put in place. The response I received was that the building administrators and team leaders all have input into the budget and get what they need. But nobody knows what they need for the next year because we've never done this before. We've never had more than 400 students at Strong. We've never had elementary students at Strong. We haven't had this many kids at Lyman in around 20 years, and we've been told the building is failing for about that length of time. Next year, we will actually have more students at Strong than the high school, yet the money appears to be moving up to the high school. Yet again, I may be wrong, so I would appreciate the district doing those calculations. The second issue I have with the budget is that you expect us to pass a budget in May, closing Memorial School and moving students to a swing space plan, but you won't know whether you have the approval for construction until June at best. I think the public deserves more discussion and explanation of the timeline for construction and steps that would be taken to change the budget and plans should that approval not occur. I also mentioned in the Student Achievement Committee meeting that I'm disappointed not to see a curriculum director in this budget. On the general education line, I see 2 vaguely named associate directors who must be working incredibly hard to roll out brand new EL curriculum in K through 6, along with multiple pilot programs and develop high school career pathways, all while analyzing that data all without a director and with only one instructional coach district-wide underneath them for general education students, which is about 78% or around 1,000 students. I also think we deserve an explanation of exactly how this budget money is supporting the students whose education is being directly affected by the multiple consecutive transitions the board has forced them to endure. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Is any other in person? Do we have any online public comment? If you could raise your hand. See any hands raised? We'll have another. Well, let me go explain it. Okay, you know, in a second, public comment. Much more exciting. Right. If you're able to unmute or raise your hand, you can go ahead. To online, and I don't see the hand raising. We'll move on. Before we get to number 4, budget discussion, I want to congratulate the girls basketball team who won Shorelines last night. They came back from an incredible deficit and managed to win, I think, by 2 points.
45-43.
45-43. Yeah, our Brantford against Morgan was phenomenal. And I think both girls basketball and boys basketball is a bye in the first round. So some exciting basketball coming up. Do they play same day?
I'll defer to Todd.
They'll play alternate days. The girls open up on Wednesday, and the boys will open up on Tuesday, both in second.
Do we know what their opponents are right now?
No, because they both have buys.
They're waiting
So
for the
I can
first
tell
They're
you
waiting.
they'll be the winner of, but we won't know the opponent yet until after Saturday and Monday's games.
It's pretty exciting. Looked like I was watching a live feed from home. It was actually really clear. It was
Yeah,
It's awesome to see.
excellent. It was so exciting.
a lot of people there too.
Yeah.
Fans always seem like the loudest.
Can I also recognize the robotics team, because this weekend they went, and came together and they got eliminated during playoffs, but they did win the Think Award, which I believe is a pretty big deal in the world of robotics in terms of collaboration, iterative design. They advanced to New England's in April. So I just wanted to make sure we say congratulations to Dr. Tabor and Mrs. Walsh and the robotics team. Well done.
Excellent. And I think Ocean Bowl, who's comprised of mostly Cog and Chuck students, one of them being Jamie's daughter, I think they made it to the finals for Ocean
Final
Bowl.
round, yeah.
Yeah,
Second
Yeah.
place, right?
They fell to a very good team. So it's, but the kids had such a good attitude about the sportsmanship, because that was part of their grade as well. Yeah, very lighthearted, but it was intense questions and collaboration. But yeah, really cool.
It's really neat. And then I think indoor track, Charlie Dallas made it to New England's in the 600. He's a phenomenal runner. I think he qualified. I think he was 6th place for opens, and so that 1 through 6 goes to New England's. I think that's up in Boston
It's Saturday
this Saturday.
at the Reggie Lewis Center.
It's very exciting. Awesome. All right, on to always our ever fun budget discussion. So what I would ask for today, I know if everyone could pull up the budget document, if you don't have a copy of it, you can probably print a copy if you have your computer. I'd like to go through the questions that we have in the budget document, and through that, maybe wait until next meeting to make any motions or decisions, so we can process it a little bit. But I think there's so many questions in there that we should probably go through them. I don't know if Kim, you have a preference, if you want to chunk the questions by,
It's probably a good idea,
by different areas.
And if we have additional things to add, can we just add that tonight, or can we, do you want us to write it in the document?
Ask me questions if I can't get it to you. I mean, I can look it up, or I can always add it to the document for the next meeting.
So we want to, you want to talk a little bit more about, that strong per pupil, the per pupil for each building and how that,
Okay, so per pupil expenditures is not something that you use to measure the quality of an education from one building to the other. There's so many factors that go into that. It could be one building has new teachers, one building has veteran teachers. It can be one building has high repair needs, one doesn't. It could be other factors of a big one would be outplaced tuition students, whether that be VOAG, magnet, their tuition follows the grade that they would have been in. So you're gonna see swings every year. You may see a low per pupil 1 year in a school, and then you have 3 students who attend VOAG or magnet school. They're not physically sitting in the chair at that school, but that per pupil cost is going to go up at that school. We don't compute it on budget because it doesn't solve the problem that you're hoping to solve with that. It doesn't make any sense. They do it historically because they just keep track of historical and the state, but it doesn't prove anything. If you were to just take salaries, supplies, stuff like that, divided by, and it's called average daily membership. It's not even actual enrollment that they use. So it's how many kids on average day would be sitting in that seat. So it's not as easy of a calculation as we think it would be. And so it's not done as a point of information to make decisions. It is done as a district level because the state does compare districts based on their per pupil. But what is not also, why that is not also accurate to compare is that regional districts are going to have a different per pupil than a local board of ed because they have different expenditures such as lawn care and snow removal and things that, and capital and debt service, things that local boards of ed do not have. So it's really not what it sounds like. The next piece is that the teachers are following the students based on their preference and how that is determined. So if a less veteran teacher were to go to one school than another, of course, then that expenditure for salaries for that school falls. Also, we did divide up. I am a finance person. We did divide up the supplies for the students. The budgeting was done very, very methodically and with a purpose. We looked at every supply and we said, this is supplies for the 4th grade. If those students in 4th grade are in Memorial, this is what we're budgeting for them. If those students in 4th grade are at Lyman, this is what we're budgeting for them. Same exact number. Didn't change. Field trips, all that. Everything was meticulously labeled by the secretaries entering the budget so that if we needed to move them back to Memorial, easy, we could do it. So to say that the funding is not following the student, it is not reflective of this budget. It might, to someone who has an understanding of the inner workings of a school district, might think that, but I can tell you that is not what happened. That the students, no one went through and said that the principals requested their budget, what their department leaders said they needed and what every department needed. And no one went through and said, well, I don't, they don't really need that. I mean, we requested, we honored, we discussed it. There was never any discretionary things taken out. Have we had experience with that many kids at a school? Maybe not in my time here, but they're professionals, they're administrators, they're teachers, and if they need something more, we're gonna provide it for them. So it's not, it's not an accurate predictor of the quality of the education the student's gonna receive in that building.
Anyone else have any other questions on that? Next one, next question I like to, just because it follows the same, a few board members had some different questions about the class sizes, the reduction in staff. So I know some concerns on whether we were staying below the guidelines for those grade levels. Do you want to explain that a little bit with the document that you went through? With this
Yeah,
one?
so
I have it if you need it.
the class sizes, and then also I had reached out to Deb Murray was so kind to provide me with her numbers, and Cheryl, Cheryl also gave me feedback. The answer is just number of students in a class. We're not exceeding student guidelines, class size guidelines. They're just not enough students to have that many teachers. That's the only reason. in all the grades. Now, first grade, second grade, and sixth grade. Kindergarten, at this point, there's not enough to have a sixth class. But it could change. It changed last summer and we added so you know that going in, that could happen. But there are not, both schools and the board and Dr. Charles and I are both gonna make sure that the class sizes do not go above the board. And we
so
don't.
the
that's not gonna happen.
expectations on those is grade 2, the board guideline is 20 students. And that's the target guideline, and that would look like class A would have 19, B would have 19, C
Exactly.
would have 19, D would have 18, and E would have 18. And then that F class would not be needed.
Correct.
Kindergarten, that's just to be determined. Grade 1 would have, the guideline is 18, and it would have 3 classrooms of 16 and 2 classrooms of 15. And
that's still 6 classes.
then the 6th grade exact numbers are not available. However, there has always been 4 core area teachers in grades 6, 7, and 8. And the only reason there's 5 this year is because of a large bubble of 120 students. And next year's numbers align with the typical 100, give or take, students. Kevin and Cheryl are working on determining out overages to support the larger class. That will be the 7th grade next year as certifications change and one teacher cannot teach all those subjects. So, but Cheryl's pretty cognizant of it, and she's going to make sure that those stay within the alignment.
Sure, maybe a thumbs up.
I don't know if anyone has any other questions on that one. Do we anticipate, I mean, that number for a second, it's pretty close. If we anticipated a surge, we could reevaluate that like we did with kindergarten.
Yeah, but I mean.
We'd have to
there's
add, what,
still so
5?
much-
I think it would be
there's quite a
5
bit of room
kids.
in there, yeah.
Okay.
And we do stick to that, to the guidelines, because I do remember in the past, when kindergarten had exceeded a certain number, we then made sure that there was someone there during instructional times because the class was too large.
Yeah, and we just reviewed, for those, we haven't given an update on it from policy, but we just reviewed the class size policy last week. And we've made no changes to it, so the guidelines are still the same. That will come to the board for approval for next meeting for our first read and a second read for March, April. Yeah. Okay. Staffing reductions, can we talk a little bit more about the reduction in the coordinator of student affairs and adding that district climate specialist? I know we had a job description put together, but I think we should talk a little bit more about what that role is. And if Ken wants to talk to it. Pretty self-explanatory, but
Well, remember that in our board policy, we did talk about having restorative practices, and that is incorporated into the policy, and this district climate specialist would do the restorative practice training, and that needs to be an ongoing training, because new staff are coming in, and we need to make sure that everybody is putting it actually into practice. And so the administrators are going to have their professional development on it this summer, but the responsibility of the district climate specialist would be to continue that training. So that's a major part of it. Also, the bullying legislation changes frequently, and it's just changed again this year. And we're in our next meeting, we're going to be doing the second reading on the bullying policy, I believe.
Mhm.
And it's another major component that we need to make sure that we're doing that procedure correctly, that we're following up on any of the reports, the investigations that need to be done, and also supporting teachers in the classroom for addressing issues that come up. We've talked about climate issues in general, and so this is going to be an important role for us.
This report to the superintendent or to
Director of Student Services and Special Education, as well as the principal, because it would be somebody that's working directly with them.
It would be a teaching level position.
Correct.
Yeah, in the teachers union.
And who will evaluate, do their evaluations?
I assume that it would be, the Director of Student Services and Special Education.
Any questions on this one for now?
Would it be an advantage to have an outside person look at it first before we decide what the job is?
Or like have a, like a climate specialist come in to look at.
You mean to review the job description?
No, to review, know what we're gonna do.
What the needs are.
You know, what the job will be, make sure that we're covering all the needs. I was just asking. I mean, it might be helpful, you know, to coordinate exactly what their priorities are, and you know, work with general principals where they see that there is an issue. You know, we've identified some in the past, but you know, it seems like, you know, we've got a lot of issues related to bullying lately, and maybe that's an area where we need focus first. I don't know, I'm just,
So maybe less the job description, but more, more of an understanding of how we're gonna start implementing, because I think it's just hard, especially this year when looking at both towns, that we're looking at increases on both towns. So when we're adding positions, I just want it to be very clear on what the need is and what the priorities are. So we may need to, before next meeting, just come back with some priorities on what this person's role would be in the next years. If we're just looking at it as a long-term position, which I think is your intent. You know, what are the long-term goals for that position?
Okay.
Right, because that was one of the questions I asked. If it was
So yeah, that's why I brought
long-term
it up. Yeah.
or short term, and if the way I look at it is if this person is primarily there for restorative practices, at some point, there's gonna be a saturation of people who are already trained. So what would their role be at that point?
Working in the classrooms, helping with, you know, modeling disciplinary techniques, helping with, you know, the various disciplinary issues that come up, bullying complaints. It's multifaceted. And I envision that this would probably be housed at the middle school. And it would support, particularly at the middle school, some of the issues. We've had some racial inappropriate language and things like that. And the teachers sometimes just need some extra support. And how do I manage this type of thing when it comes up in the classroom?
So that would deal with students and staff. Okay, and so how does that address the issues that came up in the special ed, the ad hoc committee, which talked about climate? The climate wasn't necessarily within the students and the staff.
I think it's a little different. I think that's kind of like what the issue is with this one right now. And I think that maybe the staff are wondering if this is going to be more, you know, for them. Is it more for the students? Is it to train them? Is it to work to improve climate, you know, from the top down, and more just to work with the teachers and the staff? So I think if we tease that out and have some priorities, we'll really be able to understand it.
and that it's, you anticipate a role different than the coordinator of student affairs. A different role.
Yeah, I combined some of it. When I looked at it, there was some overlapping, but more of a climate focus.
Have you seen this in other schools? Special,
Yes.
and they work out well,
That was gonna be my
they
question.
work.
Do we have something to model somewhere else?
Well, I know that they have one in Middletown, definitely, and they do again, a lot of professional development with staff and it's and you think that there would be a saturation point, but you know, there's always new staff coming in and you need to have review, and this is something that has to respond to whatever the issues are that are coming up during the year.
There's also once the,
God.
I love how everyone looked up like I'm.
Like, right.
I was just gonna say that, the idea of then using and collecting data, deciding what data to collect, and then, it's in order, once you, it's not like it's ever done. The work is never done creating a good culture and climate, because the second you take your foot off the gas, when you have that many people in one place, things start to change again. So having someone who's highly trained, motivated, and understands there to keep watch and collect and analyze the data, that you may hit a saturation of people receiving restorative practices training, but there's always culture and climate work to be done. Thank you.
So well.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure that I,
voice from that.
right, we have a district climate specialist, but then we're also talking about a, special education specialist. Are we talking about two different people? Or are they both the same? Yeah.
Two.
Different.
They're different.
This one already.
We
it's
already
in existence.
exist that
We already
way.
have that person, and this would be specific to climate.
Okay.
Can they-
Talk
Yeah.
about the special
Yeah,
ed
let's
specialist.
segue into that one, yeah.
Okay, so the district special education specialist does compliance for the whole district. This person reads every single IEP and makes sure that it's done correctly, that it's of high quality. They provide written feedback to the teachers. They do all the training on the CT SED system, the new IEP system. And in addition to that, she has in the current situation, 19 people, 19 students for outplacement that she oversees. This is quality control at its best.
So
We're adding, we already have one, so we're adding second specialist.
No, just the one.
It was just a request for the job description.
That's not a new position, we're asking for a special education teacher.
Okay, oh, that's right. So we added the
Climate
one,
Specialist wasn't
we added
wasn't
in,
a special ed.
so we added in the
to
special
clarify.
education assistant. That's different.
assistant teacher, yes.
So the teacher is not specialist.
Specialist is in existence
That's-
already.
that's-
Yes.
Was back to 2023, is it? And
Yeah, that's right.
it was just a request for the job description.
No, it goes back further than that, Ken.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Well, all
That's all
right,
right.
because the most recent hire was in
Yes. Most
Sorry.
recent hire was there, but it went back before.
We changed names, didn't we?
2019, yes.
What was
We
it
changed
before
the
that?
job description. It was
Was it-
still the specialist, but we were looking in the reading, into the reading piece of it. And all our reading trainings that went out throughout the district and that. And then the reading curriculum and then.
It was just evolving in that job description.
So then we had our reading trainings up to speed, and then we got the new CT SEDS programming and we shifted responsibilities.
And if the climate specialist is located at Strong, the other two positions are floaters.
So the
or-
climate specialist wasn't my proposal, so I'm not, that doesn't have,
No, I mean, just the two other, this is special education, the special education system, two new positions. They are to be assigned wherever.
So the
I am
addition in the
sorry.
budget,
I can't
so
do
the
it.
FTE for sped and the FTE for sped assistant, the
Yes.
two additions, are those at a specific building?
I have, based on numbers, I would like to put them at both at strong, so.
Okay.
Based
Yeah,
on,
it's hard with that fan.
It's terrible,
It is
so I'm
very-
sorry.
So loud, yeah.
You know, my
The
hearing is
chairs.
terrible to begin with, but that fan is really
Louder than normal.
difficult. So yes, based on IEP hours and needs, that is where I project that both those positions would be located.
So if that
But the
position,
specialist, the climate specialist, I don't, that's a district wide and that wasn't my proposal, so.
right, but you said it already exists, the special education.
It's not the special education teacher specialist,
The
the
specialist
one,
is in
the
there.
district climate specialist proposal.
Lucy's looking to see where the current.
It's right here, so
specialist
it
is.
says, it's on the fourth down, it says district special ed specialist.
Oh, on page 12.
Okay,
Word district was in front of it. Okay. Do we have any other questions about the additions or decreasing in staffing?
One thing I wanted to clear up that I did not mention, because it was still under, discussion was the principal, we didn't talk about the principal position at Memorial, and that was proposed in this budget to be, a position, not necessarily a person, but a position for an assistant principal at Strong. So that would be that minus that one principal, but add one to the assistant principal at Strong. So it's a net. So I just didn't clarify
So
that.
it's just not included in there.
So, right, it's budgeted for, there's no increase, but I just wanted to mention that.
And there's no decrease in that,
There's
because
no
even if you're
decrease, there's
changing
no
the
increase.
contract indicates that the salary stays the same,
Stays the
even if the
Mhm.
position goes down.
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
Would everyone understand that? So the position, moving it to Strong as an assistant principal would change the job description, but it wouldn't change the salary line item for the 2 years.
Yeah, I like one. Say it again?
Excuse me.
It's 1 year.
I've been like a staff member sitting out in those chairs, going through like iterations of budget and like that year, it was like 2013 or 12 or something, where like it went 3 times to referendum to pass, and each time staff members were sitting out there wondering if their position was going to be the one that cut. So I want to be mindful of the fact that we are talking about people, like it's really hard in a small district to not connect people. So I want to make sure that like, before I say what I'm going to say, that this is not like a personal thing, and I get it, because I have been sitting there before. But in speaking to constituents and looking at the numbers, it is difficult to see that because we're closing a school, we are reducing a nurse, 2 secretaries, 3 part-time custodians, but still maintaining an administrator. That is gonna be a tough pill, I think, for our constituents to swallow. So while that's really hard, and I know the recommendation has been to put an assistant principal at Strong, I'm wondering, and I'm not asking anybody to decide anything tonight, vote anything tonight, but that we could talk about some other perhaps creative solutions to that, because I, based on my conversations, that's something that people have asked about, in terms of what this looks like for next year. And I understand, I get it, like, I know we talked to Pat about during the retreat, the recommendation was that there should be another person at Strong because of the increase in numbers, because of the increase in issues and incidents that need to be addressed on a daily basis. And I do understand that, but I do think fiscally, especially seeing that we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 individuals being told that they don't have a job next year because the school is closing. I'm having a hard time with that.
And it's good. It's not easy conversations. I understand what you're
It's really
saying too.
not. No.
But that's why I think it's good for us to have the discussions today. Next budget, you would come back, and if we make some decisions, then we can, but I always appreciate your opinion. And you know, you have everyone's heart in place.
And I'm just going to throw out a counter position, thinking about middle school in general, and then adding all of that, and knowing that we have some issues in the middle school. I think and I'm 100% hear you, Tina. Also think that the idea of adding that many kids into that space without another administrator, I think is also going to be very scary for some parents too.
There's value in that. I mean, it certainly could be something that's looked at
in the future, when we go to that three-school system. I totally agree with you that it's a tough thing, because I've been approached about that as well. But there's value to what Dr. Darcy is saying as well, too, in the sense that next year is a transition year. We are getting some people that are not happy with the fact that we are moving those kids there already. And having that principal there, that assistant there to help with that transition and help with the overall climate of that school may not be a bad idea for one more year. And then reevaluate at that point. That's where I probably would stand on it. But there are people that have come to us and have said that. The whole point is to become more fiscally responsible and to obviously prepare for that three-school system. So it's inevitable that unfortunately there might be some of that in the future, but there is also value to what Dr. Darcy's saying right now too. That's just the way I feel about it.
I've been in public education for only 6.5 years now, and one thing that I've learned is administrators get a lot of curveballs every single day, I'm sure. And sometimes you can't handle it all. And you cannot be proactive on things, you're reactive. And it suddenly becomes, oh no, I've got to climb up this ladder. So perhaps there might be a need with more students. Again, love to see the building and the climate, and I don't have a lot of time to do that, but yeah, to prepare for a school we've never had as large in this district before, may as well be proactive and look at that and say, okay, this is our new way of doing things at a larger school that, we haven't run before, but it can be a wonderful thing,
Again, it's a tough thing to bring forward. We understand that we don't want to lose staff, especially good staff. But I think we can manage it for the year. It just depends on whether or not people are going to go forward or not. Because there are a lot of individuals that have approached myself, and I know Tina's had some as well. But if we explain it in a certain way that the
I
transition
think
might
that's
be
why it's a
something.
good discussion, because come budget hearing, when we have community members that are saying, we can't support that in the budget, we really need to explain why and what their roles would be and how they can support the middle school. Even if we had that in the budget presentation, I think that would get people to understand that a lot easier, but that's what we choose to do. It's not easy either way. So whatever way, we need to make sure that we communicate it effectively and that it's what's best for the kids.
And that was part of the reason why I asked about the cutting of the coordinator of student affairs, because it was put in when the 6th grade was brought over to the middle school. And then I was thinking, well, they're cutting that position, but then they're adding 5th graders. And it just seemed like something was gonna be missing.
Well, and I think the spirit too is that grade of kids has been affected by the interim. So coming up to the middle school, they have their principal coming with them along with staff coming with them. So it makes it a little easier for transition. And I think that was part of the reasoning behind it. Does that outweigh, fiscally, I think is what's important to try to tease out and figure out.
Yeah, which is fine. That's cutting up the position and not having somebody there.
Well, I think the district climate specialist would be housed at strong too. So that's a support to the school. So it would be the principal, essentially an assistant principal role, and then the climate specialist would all be housed at strong. If
But
that's
not,
in
but
this,
climate specialist, not just for strong.
right, but that's where it would be, there
Yes.
could be immediate support if there was issues there.
Especially.
So then next question I have is that already factored into the budget, existing budget?
Yes,
It is.
that's in these additions, yeah.
Okay.
I know, I'm probably gonna ask you to do it at the regular meeting, but do you want to give an update on, just because we're talking about budgets, the school construction grant?
Sure, do you want me to do it, after, or you want me to do it afterwards?
No, we can do it now, it's all right.
Okay, so as of, I want to say a week ago Friday, I was able to finally submit the school construction grant application. In the past, I was able to complete it, however, not submit because we were missing a referendum date, just with the timing of getting the plan amendment passed. We just ran out of time. There's certain guidelines, 30 days, 60 days, all these legal guidelines, and we were not able to get a referendum date in time for June 30th. So I was not able to actually submit the grant. And I think a lot of people were confused about that. It did never go to DAS because as June 30th, if it didn't hit submit, it goes away. So working with the state of Connecticut, I was able to submit the grant last Friday with significant input, uploads and whatnot. And was told they received it, they were gonna review it along with 11 other districts who were in the same, boat. As us. I did get an email today, Dr. Charles and I actually did the saying that they did review it, and there was just a couple of things they had questions on. Really, it was about 5. I think most of them were in the grant application, but we're gonna answer them anyways. But that's amazing that that application being so big, that's all that they pulled out. So that meant that, and that was a lot of input from Rusty and Carson. They had given me a lot of those documents. So that's a testament to, really being a thorough application. So I'm hopeful. We've also did, the building committee is gonna, recommend an architect at the next meeting, for the board to approve entering into a contract. And then we can start our design, we've got the design phase, but there could be some tweaks, some community outreach, to, get input, some staff input, and then go to the state with a solid plan. So really, we're not really behind anything, in time wise by missing that June 30th, because the state has been great working with us. And then also, Vinnie Candelora and the state legislature that, working with us on that. Again, like I said, there's 11 districts, asking for this special legislation. And so hopefully the session ends June 4th, could get extended, hopefully not, but this also could get approved prior to that. So I'm very hopeful, hopeful, yeah, optimistic that, but it looks as though that this will be, happening.
And then, I don't know if you want to touch base just because we're talking about, I think I sent most of this to the board. I'm not sure if I forwarded that yet on the HVAC grant for Memorial. And the implication, I don't know if you got answers on what that could be used for yet, or.
Yes, I'm working on that. So the HVAC grant at Memorial, we received a retroactive grant. We were denied the first year, but we reapplied and we got the $1.2 million grant from the state of Connecticut to do HVAC. It was a COVID grant. We already did the work. We used the bond funds, but we decided let's apply for it. This was before the Memorial Plan was on the table, so this goes back 2 years ago or more. And then we were approved, so we have not accepted the grant because in the typical school construction world, when you have school funds and then you do something to the building, and you actually alter that or you replace that, you have to pay the state back. So we were not accepting the grant, told the state, we're just holding off, waiting to see what happens with the project. The state came back and said, oh, well, you do know there's no repayment clause on this grant. I said, no, I did not. So I had to submit a progress report, which the work has been done for 2 years. Saying we're done, how many people benefited from it, all this, and then hopefully we'll get the 1.2 million. So with that goes back into that 6.9 bond fund that we were able to, that we paid for that, we used for those grants. Within that, there's uses, other planned uses that we can then use those funds for. And I do have a spreadsheet going. It's going to be convoluted and it's going to be another kind of just sit down and talk. It's not a budget necessarily thing, but it's a sit down and talk about where those funds can be used. And there's about a series of about 5 different places where they can be used. But with that, we can also take the capital reserve money that we've put in there, say for paving, we had 300,000 we put in for it. The board can now reallocate that to a completely different project and we can use bond funds because paving was one of the things. So we have, I don't want to say it could be a couple $1 million that we can then put towards other projects. ADA improvements was something that was in the bond package, so we can use it for that. But those other capital reserves, we can save for the roof at Coggin-Chog, we can save for the strong, roof at Strong, and we can use those funds to really help us. So that was great news. I spoke with, I haven't heard back from the state yet, but I submitted the progress report. I spoke with our bond attorney who was on board with everything I suggested. He said, great. He just wants to see we have to do a resolution. He just wants to see the resolution before you, but I'm not there yet.
So that'll evolve it as that happens. I was
Yeah.
interested to see, because I know we're talking about improvements, it's strong, and
Yeah.
I was wondering if the ADA issues with the gym and
Without a
the
doubt.
stage, we could allocate some of that to make sure.
Absolutely.
'Cause
Yep.
there's
And we
a
could-
significant amount.
Right, and we do have some children, wheelchair bound children
Yep.
now
Yeah.
and in the future. That
Yeah, I
will
would like to. make-
require that.
Yeah, I'd like
And
to
not
make sure
just
that
at
the.
Strong, but at
the high
Talk and
school.
Talk, there's the auditorium and sidewalks and stuff that need to be.
And that would be a
fixed, so-
long-term improvement, not just a Band-Aid for the current.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, correct. So if these are gonna be your 3 buildings forever and ever, amen, you have the funds to upgrade the ADA. So that was amazing.
That's
news.
great.
Yeah,
It's pretty exciting.
but I didn't get the money yet, so.
No, we have it.
Thank
We're
you.
spending it.
We're spending it.
We've got it.
Yeah.
It's all right. We always get excited to spend
We're
it.
really good at that.
No, it'd be good to, and we'll put that for an update for building committee too. I know, I let them know the other day, but it would be good for them to know. So we're talking about facilities, if we wanna switch over to facilities, we had a ton of questions on, athletics and, questions around the different facilities in the auditorium. You know, we have some answers on it, but there are some questions about, the equipment in the auditorium, how old it is and, are we saving for that? And, if, what it would take to upgrade some of the, issues in the auditorium. And I know we talked about, that's kind of why I brought the funding from the HVAC grant up, because
Yeah.
I don't know how long that would take, but is that something, if we find we can use that money for the auditorium, would that be something that could update, we could use to update for next year? Will we have it by then, or are we talking like,
So it would involve getting, say, an architect on board to do some plans, maybe an engineer or whatever the case may be. We can start the process. Would it be finished? I don't know, because I don't know how long that takes. I
Right.
think we'd also have to sort of do an ADA audit of the buildings to find out exactly what we need.
'cause that
So-
that audit was quite a while ago, right?
Yeah.
No, not really.
No,
Was it?
you're
Was it
right. We have a
21?
Pretty good updated one,
we-
yeah.
Was it one, I think the year we started, it was 21.
Yeah, so we would be able, I forgot about that, so we would be able to use that. And then I don't know how long the projects would take, so would it be done for the first day of school? That's cutting it kind of close, but we certainly can start the work. And because there's no restriction on when you use, you don't have to wait till July 1st to use it, it can start tomorrow, it's just all the, the work that gets involved with getting that rolling.
Yeah, and I think because it hasn't died yet, we're not really talking about it, but, Tina brought up a good point about the soundboard in the auditorium, it's 30 years old.
Yeah, we know that.
And it's,
Fortunately.
we have so many programs within the district that revolve around theater and
So
music
we
and,
could redesign that whole, and it's also, you can't get to it if, it's not accessible being where it is. So we could redesign the whole thing.
That'd be great.
Part of it.
even revenue wise, having been wanting to use it.
Well, and that we do have revenue producing groups that do come in to use that space. And I know that would be helpful. I would also hope that the staff who use that space the most would be like consulted in terms of what the needs would
Oh,
be if they
of course,
haven't
of
already.
course. Yeah.
We could certainly bring that up at the building committee too,
Would
and
be
just have
great.
them come
Yeah.
and we could do a full, assessment of that.
Yeah,
and
that would be
take a look at that.
wonderful.
Again, we're not gonna put the cart before the horse. Once we get the money, then, like I said, we can find ways, but that's a great idea. The auditorium is definitely something that
Yeah.
is used a lot
Mhm.
by all the schools. I think it definitely needs an upgrading. So we focused on certain things. That's probably the next thing we probably should focus on for a little bit.
Yep. And then, so looking at some of the, we had a ton of questions under athletics and the facilities. And I know Kim answered some of it, but we have questions from Todd, the key fob access for the press box. And you
So,
talked about. a little
I
bit.
can speak about most of them. These didn't necessarily come from an athletics proposal. These came from our policy committee meetings. So when we had the meetings regarding the use of the facilities and the properties, these are the things that came up as being important to put in the budget. But it's important that because the whole board hears this too. These weren't just things that we identified that, maybe a fob is more important than a roof. I mean, this was feedback. So the concession stand, we can start with the concession stand. So that out there and please, you guys know more about it than I do. But essentially, I believe I'm not sure if we own the building, the actual shed, but we don't own any of the equipment or anything inside of it. Additionally, it is not suitable to be a concession stand. And it has wiring and electricity problems. It's got old equipment out there. I have not been in it myself because I can't go in it and not shut it down. So it's got to be addressed. We also have a new, I hear we have a new health department advisor, who, you know, maybe this hasn't risen to the top of the list in the past, but you know, I know I'm just in my own personal life, working things like this, they get very involved. And it's just like running a restaurant. So that needs to be addressed, before it gets shut down. So the thought was in the policy committee meeting was to put money in the budget, outfit it, get it all fixed, get the electrical fixed, get equipment in there. And then have that for reservation for groups to use. So you can reserve it if you have a sporting event, whatever or whatever event it is, I don't do sporting. That's gonna involve a little bit of work on our end because that's gonna be hard to reserve it. I don't wanna say hard, but it's gonna get cumbersome. I also, there's also gonna be a lot of restrictions around what food you can serve if you're not a serve-safe person. Which is also health department, requirement.
The
So-
community center just had this issue too.
I can't just go in and decide I'm gonna flip burgers. I have to be certified. So maybe it's a cafeteria staff person that we have to pay to do that because they are certified. But you just can't go in as the president of a club and do that. So that's gonna be a significant change, what the people in the district have.
Certifications can be easily facilitated. There's more than just serve safe today. For those community groups that want to have people trained that might oversee it,
Exactly,
certainly I can handle that easily. So
yes.
do
So
a
they
class,
Designate.
take the
someone.
online course, done.
And we'd give some time
We're
between,
listing
you know,
bucks.
now and the fall when athletics started. I just think it's important that, and we talked about like, maybe fixing the floor, raising the floor up and
Fixing
and
it all.
making
It
it
has to
so.
be up to code.
So we have,
Deep
it'd be
fryer,
nice to
sorry.
be able to like, for each
Nasty.
organization that uses it to be able to
You can
keep a
bake.
bin of things
Careful.
above if it's
So
possible.
there's a lot that we need to talk about in terms of that. Who's gets to store their food in there inventory wise? Where is it gonna be stored? So there's a lot of factors that have to be figured out. But
And I know Eric has to weigh in on it too.
so, you know.
So we
thought
think that-
25 would be a start. Maybe we wouldn't be able to do everything in there, depending on what equipment the teams wanted.
And the
So-
district does own it. It took us a while to figure out how it went back, but an athletic director had done a fundraiser. To buy that shed, the food out front and then the
So it's a
equipment.
Board of Ed owned
Yes,
building.
yeah.
Okay.
But all the equipment inside is owned by individual
I
organizations.
thought that was emptied out.
No, I think there's 3 refrigerators, a freezer, some popcorn machines, some coffee machines. And I think the electrical gets tripped a lot depending on what's on and off, so.
Gotta go.
Gonna take a lot of.
Start with a hand washing sink. That's what we need.
Well, there's no water there.
There's no water,
So
so that water needs, we need water in there. They use the water from
Start with water, then a hand washing.
start with water. There's no water, they get water from the field house, the hose. They make it safe.
The other option is to put it inside the
Right.
building
Yes.
and
Absolutely.
put a window there and house it inside the building
That has water.
that has water.
And frame out a concession stand in the current field house, you're saying?
Yeah. And then,
In the long term, but I think in the short term, we need a solution for the short term. And this would, I mean, that equipment could get moved over to the field house if they need to do that, you know,
Yeah,
eventually.
Middlefield's Park and Rec Director Hannah Malcolm probably at this.
How full is that thing right now?
She does a great job we have our Lions Pavilion at Peckham Park and, you know, that's a facility that generates a lot of
it does-
interest with the food and various groups do use it,
Yeah.
but she's had a lot of experience in communicating with groups and renting it out and making sure things are done afterwards.
Falcon Field makes a boatload of money
Yep.
with that. They have a full kitchen. it makes up the whole load of money.
Who makes the money? The team?
So they have Platt and Maloney that both use them all, and I guess they have their boosters that go in there and take care of when Platt's playing or Maloney's playing, and that money goes back to their specific, I can check into it, but it definitely makes them both load of money.
Yeah.
'Cause
And
the
there's like a
finance-
whole cleaning of it, like I think we'd expect people to clean it, but then we might need someone from the district to
Well,
go
they
in. and-
definitely have a checklist of things that they have to do when they close down and open every day, and there's a freezer in there too. But again, that was built right with big money.
And I think that's the source of a lot of
How big is
funding.
big?
So
Right.
without it, it would be
Right.
detrimental to their existence.
There's another piece that comes in as we upgrade these facilities. Obviously, the cost is gonna be more. So therefore, if we start to put fees on usage, then we start to hear that, organizations are strapped. They don't have the money. But I'm not sure it's the right thing for the district to absorb all of the costs for as these facilities are being used. Unless we decide to have our own staff there and our own staff does all the work and then we pay for it. I don't know, just something that has to be.
Well, I think
Really
with the way
looked
that
into.
policy went through it is that, we would be looking at, deposits as opposed to, rental fees for the organizations within our towns. And that seemed to go over pretty well with having a deposit. We definitely don't want to strap our own boosters into, fees, but as the revenue gets more, the field itself is lined for lacrosse. If we're having lacrosse tournaments, that's a revenue, can we use that to rent out the concessions and the field. But I think it's just something that evolves, and I think there's just a lot of people and feedback that needs to come into it, but this is a good start, just to make sure we're up to code. And Kim doesn't have to worry about health departments.
Just Kim.
I know.
He gets stressed out. He gets stressed out the most.
And every year we get asked, how can the gate fees go to the general fund?
Yeah.
And it might be good to have. This is what we get in gate fees, but we spend $700,000 in athletics, so it barely covers.
Yeah.
Anything. So it might be good to have a figure out of the general fund, just to have it available to answer a question. How much the gate fees generate versus how much the cost of them.
Probably significantly more since we put the lights, correct?
Not significant, I wouldn't say
No,
significant.
I think it's almost even the way,
Yeah,
I
I think
tried to
that
do it
we
in my
had
head one day, and
track
it
of
seems
it,
about
yeah.
even for the amount of security and workers we
Yeah.
had for the gate fees
Yeah.
coming in.
You
Even with
charge
our
staff,
larger, even with our larger sports like football, yeah,
So we're paying
there's a
for a
lot of staff. Yeah.
So then we need to look into that.
If
We really need all
you
the
break
staff.
down the cost on the subject area, it's like $700 and some odd thousand we're paying for athletics. That includes the staff.
A lot of the staff, and I can't say it all, and I'm not an expert on it, but is CIAC required.
You have to have a certain amount of site
Yeah.
directors, you have a certain amount of custodians, a certain amount of security,
The
so to
clock
speak.
shop operator, shot clock, all that stuff.
Oh, I think we need to show that the gate fees don't cover the cost of running the program.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we could tease that out with numbers and look at CIAC requirements versus what we have. It seems to come up multiple times a year on the gate fees, which I understand. I just think if we can have a visual, it'll help a lot. You want to talk about the sound system at the stadium?
So the sound system is, and again, I'm gonna need your input because this was something that we talked about at the policy committee again, but, it's 15, sorry, I forget how old it
15
is.
years old.
15, yes, 15 years old. The speakers were just replaced in 2023, so those are fairly new. It's can't be regulated very well. It blows out the speakers. It doesn't have like a very good, it's out of date, parts are out of date. It needs to be, the mother part of it needs to be replaced. Todd did get a quote and it's about $16,000 to do that. And another problem with that and why it was a part of the policy committee when we were talking about building use is because right now, youth organizations use it, and if they're not careful with it, or they don't know how to use it,
Okay.
it breaks. Right,
So the speakers aren't broken on that, it's the sound system, it's the it's the motherboard of like itself.
Yeah, yeah,
So it sounds like it's speakers.
The amplifier,
amplifier, thank you.
Okay, makes sense.
So,
Actually had to glue the volume, hot glue.
I saw that last game, yeah.
so an amplifier,
The year.
$16,000.
Well, when you start replacing the amplifier, you start replacing all of the other things, for example, like one of basic, you have Bluetooth capabilities, you don't use plugins anymore with your, everything else has gone up in technology that system can't be upgraded enough. It's not just replacing the amplifier, it's everything else that has to be replaced and then
And that soundboard itself actually doesn't have parts available anymore.
So that would get us
You
up
can't
to
repair it. It just can't be
current.
repaired.
Yeah.
Yes,
with speakers from 2020.
and I know
the
that,
system is significantly greater at the ball field than it is at the baseball.
And then do you hire someone from the district to run the sound system for?
for our games, I think the youth organizations hire, not hire, but they usually have a parent or one of the students, or it's kind of a free for all.
For our games or for?
For the
Falcon?
youth games. For our games, I believe it's usually the same person or somebody who fills in for that person, right?
Usually some kind of staff member that we supply, or it's someone to coach.
So that, and I know we talked about it at policy,
It's just a
but we,
good plan if you've got new equipment and you don't want it to get wrecked, because sometimes people don't know how to use it properly and stuff breaks and then, oh, not me.
yeah. You know, and I think that's a tough thing too, because you know, how much do we charge for that? Is that gonna hurt the youth organizations? But in the end, like or whether we train someone, do we offer a training for a certain amount of people within those organizations to use them? And then they're trained, but they also have some sort of deposit that if something breaks, that they're responsible. But it's also really hard to say who broke something when, you know, they can say, oh, it was working at the beginning, but not that anyone's gonna be, you know, not honest about it. It's just, it's hard when you wanna not have to charge for something just to make sure something's safe.
And
but-
that's why the key fob access came about, was to be able to lock that down. And
Right now, there's like
only
30,
give
40
authorized
keys out. There's a
access.
ton of people with
There's
keys to it.
keys, yeah, we want to move to a fob.
And that's the only way, the only thing I could think of with the key fob access is if we're gonna update the sound system, maybe we just change the locks and we use a key system and not put in a key fob system there. I don't know if it's,
I mean, yeah, but
Just
now
the
you're gonna
cost
have
savings,
another
no.
key. So if it's the same master key as everything else, then
it can
it's,
just be copied.
well, no, the master keys are out there, so if you make it another lock, then everybody's gonna need another key, and then the same thing's gonna happen. And the fobs are more controlled, because we issue them.
Well, you issue them and you can also track
And shut them off.
Shut them off.
going in and out and turn them off if necessary.
And you can indicate what hours somebody has access.
And we don't have that on the field house right now. That's just keys, right?
No, the field house is fobbed, yep,
Oh, it is?
So it's fobbed to the buildings, fob system.
yes.
So then you
Field
go,
house was Bob, part of the,
right, so,
and security cameras external.
so it should be just running basically, wiring up there.
All the way out to the
We've got,
spots.
the vendor came out yesterday to do a quote. It's actually looks like he's running the numbers now. Probably because the press box already has internet access. Probably less costly to put a brand new control board and everything in the press box itself on the wall, as opposed to all the labor and the length of composite wire we would need to run from the field house all the way up, because the way the pull boxes run, they go out into the parking lot and follow the driveway all the way up. So that's a
So
lot
we
of
follow that
cable
access
labor.
road up
So
in the back?
Yeah.
to get a new control unit, probably gonna be the least costly way to go. It should have an exact quote within that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Athletics. There's questions. So we talked about a little bit, it's in the budget, that line item for under the athletic equipment budget, that
Yeah.
15,000, that's for the 3 AEDs.
3 new AEDs, 3,300 each.
Which are required.
There'd be one in each field.
Baseball, football, and softball.
And
Actually, wouldn't there one be with the athletic trainer at all times? If they're out there, would that be?
No, the athletic trainer currently has one that's mobile. And isn't can't be put on a sign, because if you put a sign there, then we're required to have it
Have
there.
it there, yeah,
So these three would be housed at each individual
as
field.
permanent.
And it includes an external locked box
Box.
in case. That has to be accessed by a code in two ways. One by either us, our code, or there's also a 911 code that when someone calls 911. The 911 dispatch has a code that will open up that facility separately from, say, our code that we have with our coaches.
That's good. So that'd be baseball, softball, and football. For the field house.
Field house.
Then there was a question, Kim, for the increases for PE for, I know this is not athletics, this is actually, programming, but the increases for PE and
Yep.
COG and, Strong.
So Strong, the teacher from Memorial would be split between Strong and Lyman. So that was the increase at Strong. There's also a retirement incentive that the teacher has told us they're going to be retiring. So in their contract, they get a 10%. So that's why Strong is higher, because we're getting an additional, I'm not sure if the split's 0.5. I don't know right off the top of my head, but Coginchag was an error. We had just put it into the wrong line. It should have been in certified sub. So Tina noticed that. Thank you. We fixed that error. It does not affect the bottom line of salaries because it was in the right place. It was just in that wrong detail account. So
Do we know what page that was on?
where we had the incorrect
Yeah, just so we can cross it out.
32?
certified salaries. It's in a couple different.
32.
According to the
Spots.
question.
Oh, yeah. I put the page number in my question. Oh, look at you. Brilliant.
There was another one for an increase in tech ed at Coginchog.
Yeah.
And that one was because there was a reallocation of a staff member from LA to tech ed. And then that also is contractual increases.
And was there,
And that the reduction in LA is shown. You'll see a minus in the way.
and is that also, does that also account for the increase in equipment for tech ed? Because we have, like, there will be an additional teacher teaching, an additional 0.5.
So you're asking me, does it include like because it's a photo class, does it include the photo?
Right, because there was also an increase in the equipment budget for tech ed this year.
Okay, I did not.
I didn't ask that question.
right.
Sorry.
So, yeah, no, I will have to look. I do believe it's EMT, EMR supplies. That's a class now. They used to be paid by parents or students, but now it's in the budget for that. So that's probably the increase you're seeing. I could do a more deep dive on that too, but.
While we're talking about the athletics, I noticed in the staff chart, the athletic director reports to the Deb. I was wondering if that, is that correct? Is the report to the superintendent or is it report to the principal?
Well, I guess in the past, athletic director has reported to the principal, but they are in the same union, so that's probably not
Yeah,
the way that you want it for the future. I'm happy to do that. if, That's a preference.
Yeah, because this is the first year with being in the admin contract. So before it was in the teacher's contract, so it reported. So maybe that change would probably be good.
Yep. We've already met anyway, so.
Okay.
and then, while we're saying that, there's no, the staff charts in here are current, they're not proposed.
Right.
So the proposed ones would be slightly different.
Yep.
And would show some of those additions and subtractions.
Am I missing any of those, Tina?
And while I said
I
that,
have one.
is the unemployment compensation high enough to cover possible layoffs?
We hope so, because they may get other jobs. So if they get other jobs, they won't collect.
Right.
So, yeah, we think so.
Or they might have a summer work thing.
But we're a pay as you go, so
Yeah.
we only get charged if they actually collect.
I had brought this up, I think, during the retreat, but I wanted to make sure that I brought it up again while we have like more people here and all that, but, staff feedback has indicated that the team leaders positions that were cut, the K-12 team leaders, not individual schools, but the K-12 team leader positions. Right, RP, music, tech, are sorely missed. You know, the benefits being streamlining curriculum, streamlining communication, organizing PD in a way that's meaningful to the entire group and making sure they have a spokesperson for doing that, they have a spokesperson for communicating to admin, about their needs. Making decisions that are based on data. Did I already say streamlining, like vertical alignment of curriculum? It might really help in terms of gathering data and organizing and budgeting district-wide, especially going to like a preschool model. So the request was to bring them back, and I heartily support that. I know that had been taken out of the contract years ago, 2-3 years ago, I can't remember. And I know that, again, like it would be adding a stipend.
So I believe, and I would have to double check, and the principals might be able to help me with this, but I do believe what happened was they were just changed. So the K-12, say, art became a action plan design.
Right,
stipend?
strategic action
Right.
plan.
So it was
designer.
not, so that the stipend amount wasn't necessarily removed, it just was changed.
No,
to
no,
something
right,
else.
right.
So if the
Yeah.
desire was to change that into something else, that would be done. It's the board's right to fill that position or not. They don't have to fill the action plan designers, but if they wanted to fill that with something else, it would be probably an MOU with teachers union to just change those. What the job would be for
Change the
those.
description,
Yeah.
change the description of the role of that.
Yeah.
Is that something we'd want if it's feasibility wise, would we want to reach out to the union ahead of doing something along the lines of budget? Or does it stay, no matter what, it's in the
Yeah,
budget?
if you're
'Cause-
gonna keep it the same money wise, it doesn't have to be done before the budget. But if you are going to increase or decrease something, then it would impact the budget to know, but.
And then when those positions then come up for like, I'm assuming, I mean, I'm not assuming, I was an employee of the district. So I know that in the spring, people apply for those positions. It would be the same thing with a tweaked job description, with a tweaked description, if that was approved through MOU, that then people could apply for. Specifically to say K-12 team leader 4, or K-12 team leader 4. Okay.
And
Got it.
if that decision or that has not been finalized by the
Mhm.
time of the spring rolls around, those positions, those stipends would just not be filled until the time when we did, and then we post. So, you might start the school year, if things didn't happen in a timely manner, you might start the school year without one.
Mhm.
But within the first, 3 weeks or something, they could start, but, as long as that MOU got worked out in time, it could be in the spring.
So currently the contract reflects the other title,
Yes.
but it wouldn't be a change of working condition.
No, it would just be, well, you might have someone who might not be qualified to do one of the other stipends. So it would all depend on, but then they just wouldn't apply to that new stipend. But
I'm just trying to think what the union would do with it.
Did the principals find it better to have the team leader or the new strategic action, whatever they call
It's a great question.
I don't think that'll.
Leader receivers,
Strategic who?
Action plan designers.
strategic action plan designers.
Well,
Right.
it?
I think it's two different things, because the action plan, if I can speak, doesn't necessarily do like department leader K-12 stuff, so they're not, the principals are not seeing the day-to-day kind of work, am I right, Steph?
Yeah, the strategic action plan designers are more, they do district-wide and they can do, I mean, right now we have one that focuses on technology integration at the elementary level. We have one that focuses on technology integration at the upper grades and really helping teachers to understand the best way to integrate some of the technology amongst other responsibilities. That's a larger part of their role. And then we have a global strategic action plan designer that runs a lot of programs across the district that helps our students to connect with students in other countries across, you know, our country, across the world. We have another one that helps bringing in local businesses and organizations and getting our students out there. So it's unique. It's not necessarily content related, but they do more district wide.
They're all current teachers.
Yes.
This is just action.
Yes.
And to follow up Bob's question, my question would be not only do the principals notice the difference, but does the staff notice the difference, right? Like,
Well, I worked with one to talk about getting some global stuff done, and there was really nobody else that would take that lead unless, you know, this, one of the teachers was willing to do, well, was teacher was you, was willing to do that work and connect, you know, different, you know, countries. You know, my particular plan was to get a coordination between Durham, England and Durham, Connecticut. And since Durham, England is a historic site of the National Register, I thought those kids would be interested in what Durham, Connecticut kids do.
This
And
sounds
it's-
very cool.
And it sounds like, I just to say we could start just a correspondence to begin with. But that was just one of my ideas, and it hasn't really gone too far. So like the strategic action coordinator probably needs to have me talk to them further off the subject.
Not necessarily a budget question, but we'll,
and,
it does have some implication.
and again, it doesn't have to be an either or. Do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be an either or. Either it's a strategic action plan designer who are doing good things in the world, like, could it be both? And how do we make that happen in this budget? Could we communicate with the union and say the MOU is to add those stipends in, and then we figure out how to fund them for team leaders? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's not a bad
Well,
idea.
in the past, we've taken the total stipend budget and let the union kind of decide how they get split from where they are.
That's
So-
more for the clubs, not so much for the like leads, department heads and stuff like that. Those are kind of set.
Yeah.
It's more the clubs, they decide what clubs are.
Do you think we can like creatively figure out how to make that happen?
in our
Haven't had-
budget.
Yeah, I mean, we can look through it between now and next budget session and see if we can get together with Stephanie and Liza and see what the current roles are there versus what the team leaders used to do and maybe come up with some ideas.
Is not gonna say no to more stipends, so that'll happen, but it all depends on how we can pay.
Well, also the people are, principals ought to tell us if they think it's needed to have their team leader. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right?
Carol hasn't had a team leader, but,
It hasn't had an effect.
huh?
I haven't noticed.
Yeah.
An impact without this.
So virtually all the principals except Deb,
I think
Or-
you need to ask the staff.
huh?
I
We
think-
do, maybe do a staff
I
survey on
think we
it.
need, I think you need to ask the staff because they're the ones who, they're the ones who are doing the PD. They're the ones who are talking about curriculum, you know, like this. I think, yes, and, right?
Well, while we're on stipends, Kim, I know there was questions last year about how the, like some of the coaching stipends were, filled out. Are those still the same in this budget?
Are you talking athletic coaches? or
Yeah.
you're talking.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Then nothing has changed on that.
Okay.
It's the way they're paid and they're all, it reads a cog and cog is so heavy per pupil that is beginning of. So.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Or just, I remember that coming up in the fall and just some issues with it. Okay. I don't think there's many questions left in the document. I know we're gonna continue talking about. That's for tomorrow. I'd like to wait on finance committee only because they're gonna meet tomorrow. And then their questions, I would like finance committee's questions to come into our next budget session. Does that work? Because they haven't had a chance to talk through those, so I'd like finance just to talk through them. And that's, so the $70,000 increase at Cognachog for tech ed, can you, I think you explained it in the document, but it might be good just to say it. That's the addition of photography.
Yes, photography, I believe is a class. It's not a new class. It's
Right.
just who's teaching it is different. So it used to be a 1.0 LA teacher. Now it's a 0.5 LA teacher and a 0.5 tech ed, just because.
So that
photography
salary
falls
was
under
split
tech ed.
out of
Correct.
ELA to. tech.
Yes, and you'll see the reduction under, I don't know if it's ELA, language arts, LA.
So it's not in that.
Yeah,
Correct. There's no additions, no subtractions. It's just because how it's coded, photography falls under tech ed. So it's just a switch to where.
yeah, it might be
detail
something we
comes.
think about putting in the budget hearing, just to explain that there are certain positions that have been split up and moved. And so we're not looking at huge
Happens
additions.
it's been happening for years,
Yeah.
but it's just based on who's teaching what.
Tina, you asked some questions about some certified and support staff grants. You got an answer on that one?
I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
I looked just now and I couldn't find it. So when I do find it, I will cite the page number
Okay,
in
thank
that
you.
document. Sorry about that.
And then the substitute question was answered.
There's a question about, well, I listed the grants that we get, and whether they're federal or state, because that was a question, what happens if we don't get funding?
That was the question.
Yeah,
Right.
so
That was the
we do get some federal grants, Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV. And then we get IDEA, and IDEA preschool. So, the title grants, are nice to have, but would they be, one of the title grants funds a part-time tutor, part-time intervention is great to have. But not, destructive to the school environment if we don't get them. What would be bad would be IDEA, but then everybody would be in that boat. So I highly think that wouldn't happen. The other grants are state grants, which have not had an impact from, federal. So,
And I know it doesn't have really an impact on the budget per se, but I know I sent you all the email that the state has allocated 40 million to districts for sped for
Oh, and I can
the
see
ECS grants. We did a lot of work advocating at the state for this year. It's a big number, and so you get excited about it. I think it equals about 122,000 for us. Large numbers increases Hartford, the larger cities. So like 40 million sounds like a big number. It's not too much for us, but it's a really good start from the state understanding that SPED is underfunded in ECS. And I think they're going to keep listening. I don't, the education committee in the way they talked about it, they know that this is just a start and it's just a little gimme, but they really need to fully fund the ECS grants, and they need to understand that the numbers coming out of SPED are just incredible. And I think they're hearing it. There's only, I think last Friday, they approved the 40 million completely. So now the governor just needs to sign it. There doesn't seem to be much indication he won't sign it. So I don't know when that comes, but we'll look for that soon.
and in terms of that, we did budget hoping it would be fully funded anyway, so we will not be able to reduce our budget.
Right. It's more of an indication for next year, which most districts have done. Some districts are seeing really huge deficits because they're not anticipating fully funding it. So it's been an issue across a lot of districts.
There has been, I had a conversation yesterday with Lisa Hammersley. There's a new program that they're trying to propose to the legislature they call the DRIP program, District Repair Improvement Program. And they're, for districts who don't get a lot, not even just everybody who doesn't get a lot for their repairs and their capital improvements. So they're proposing that it's kind of like a low SIP, which is what the towns get. We would, if the formula is followed, we would get about $80,000 a year, which fine, we'll take it. That'll help pay for a gym floor or something, whatever the case is. So there's a possibility for that. But in our conversations, we talked about, districts being faced with such high unexpected special education, expenses every year. And part of our recurring, capital non-recurring fund, we can use that for special education. So she said she's seeing districts kind of shying away from their 2% in their capital, which hurts me. But the other part of saving for, a reserve for special education tuitions that come up that you didn't budget. So that might be something we might want to look for going forward.
I think the education committee is really focusing on the transportation aspect, but so many of these outplacements, the transportation is really the costly number on them. Which is tough, but right now there's no consortium, there's no like level as to what you can charge. So the transportation company can charge whatever they want, and they're in demand, so what you pay is what you have to pay.
Same thing with the placements.
It's that, and then there's also a new trend with institutions that they pay for all of their services.
Yeah.
So there's a base tuition and then the paying for their service hours on top of that often.
Well, it's hard for districts to predict, and I know Kim does a really good job at trying to, but state has to find ways to help us, especially smaller districts.
Kim, I know I asked you this, but as far as unfunded mandates, the total number of what that actual number is to the district. Do we know what that is?
That's very, very difficult to put a number. For the mandates, double-sided. They're not all unfunded. The reason and I'm trying my best, I reached out to my CASBO group, I reached out to Shipman, I reached out to other districts that, the reason it's hard to put a number on, there are certain things that I can easily put a number on, like special education, transportation, tuition, VOAG, we have to provide transportation for IDS students, that kind of stuff. But then there's those ones that are increased reporting that a person might already do, or it might be the personal finance class. Well, we didn't need to hire another business teacher to do that, but we took away another class to offer that. So those are the ones I'm struggling with assigning a dollar amount to. But the ones that are very cut and dry, I can put a dollar amount to that. At least that'll help us.
The only reason why I ask is because I think people need to understand that it's significant.
It's significant.
And that, it's going to be part of our budget, whether we like it or not. So I think people need to understand that. At least we know, at least have an idea.
This has been going back and forth in my CASBO group for a couple of years. We're trying to put a number on it. And I even said, hey, if we have some sort of an industry norm that we can just, and then multiply that by our enrollment, maybe we can do that. So I'm working on it. Sorry, I don't have it for tonight.
And I think the other thing we really need to think about for next budget session is, in the past, we've either asked to take the budget and reduce it by a certain amount, or we've looked at line items and we've done it this way. Between now and next budget session, do we have enough that we want to look at, or do we want to ask, to get down to a certain number? I think that we need to think about that between now and then. I know Kim's seen the numbers, but coming out of a lot of the districts are incredible increases. Most of them have to do with SPED. And
Well, the other big
healthcare
one
costs
is-
and the insurance.
Because we just got hit with a 12% increase on healthcare. So I mean, it's definitely out there.
And a lot of districts are reporting back, they're coming down very minimal amounts from the superintendent budgets. Very, very small decreases, like from 4.39 to 4.92. So I think it's obviously difficult across the state to do it right now, but if we need to, we can find.
The state average is 5.45%. Regional school district averages is a 5.1, and Dirk C is a 5.47. But mind you, not everybody's reported, so those are just who's reported. But when you do look at when I do look at the numbers, there's 12.5, 10, 7.8. There's also 3.24s, there's some 3s, there's some 4s, but they're significant.
Those 3s and 4s are probably towns or cities that are getting a significant amount of federal funding too.
some are, but some aren't. Like, it's hard to even look at the budget numbers because some of them are in the last phase of school consolidation and they're about to close 2 schools. Or they're about to close 1 school, or they've just finished a construction project, or they've finished a lot of capital projects. Once you tease that out, I think Kim's closer to what that
The
average
average is
is.
5.5,
Yeah.
6.
Or even 10.65.
They had a lot of increases in salary, I believe, because coming out of COVID, they fully funded their COVID staff that they used with the grant. money.
District, a lot of people living there.
And they lost a lot of COVID funding.
So unless we have any other questions, there's a lot to talk about. Next budget work session is after our next regular meeting, correct?
There's just that. On Memorial Schools, you talked about moving some of the PE and R. There's also interventionist, instructional coach and tutor. Those all move. Are they split or they travel?
Oh, they moved different kind of percentages, yeah, so the administrative team met and talked about any kind of staffing changes, so there were no cuts in that interventionists or tutors, they were just moved to where the need was.
So the coach would be probably one that travels between schools, or they would stay.
We
Oh,
do have.
who else over there?
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of the positions that you just named wind up being split because essentially our populations that
Yeah,
we're
right.
servicing is divided between 2 schools. So those are proposed to be split positions.
The travel.
We would try our very best, obviously, to try to limit travel to like 1 school per day. And
Yeah.
it would not be ideal, obviously, to have them split between multiple buildings with multiple start times in 1 day.
Okay.
Tina, on that tech ed equipment, you were asking Cog and Chug, I do see a, camera, $2,300 and, that's just it's higher. And then a, replacement for, I guess, a TV that is broken, so that's $1,000. So that's the increase in that. That was different from last year.
Were we able to get any quotes for the trophy displays for music and robotics? I know that's not in the budget, but I didn't know if that was something we could try to budget for if we wanted to add it to it. It was the only ask of the robotics club when they came to us, was we asked them what the board could do to help them and fund what the programming they're doing, and 2 of the students said, we just really like to have a trophy case. And it was just,
Oh, so they put their trophies. Sorry, I didn't even ask to speak.
okay.
Their trophies are in the cafeteria. We went, Matt and I, Dr. Tabor and I went down with the other day. And that's something I think we're gonna kind of talk to the board about.
Yeah.
We have a lot of things from before Katie was born.
Wow.
Being done, and so, yeah. and
We like
so-
history around here.
Well, over
Getting some things out and make.
So we need some direction, I feel, at least the high school. We'll need some direction from the board on policy on either archiving. I don't even really want to store, so I'm not gonna use. the
Yeah,
word
I don't,
store.
yeah, I think we'd have to add a policy, because I don't think there
don't
really
think
is.
There is one.
I mean, there's a policy on removing materials or getting rid of materials, but
Well,
that's.
it's like, those rifle trophies have not.
That's exactly where the robotics trophies went, you know,
I know
the
things.
rifle trophies
Yeah.
from the rifle team.
I suspect there is some purging that went on historically, because I do remember my best friend being stuffed into a case that was empty and locked.
Oh, no. There.
Right here.
You know, it's sports ones Todd and I have talked about, I mean,
That's
we have
funny.
these teams winning these wonderful things right now. And, you know, pictures of, I think there's a picture from 1970 from the winning team. And that's almost older than me, so like, that speaks volume, hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, you.
And I think even looking at like the music trophy, like when you come into the,
Yeah.
like right before the auditorium, they're all right there, but you can't see all of them, and some of them are like behind, like But
If we
for them,
afford
they've
the
gotten an
cafeteria.
amazing amount of trophies, but I think if we look at upgrading that and getting some input from the
Yeah,
district
and
department.
I go to my shoreline principals meeting on Friday, so I can ask if any of them have policies just to.
That would
start
be helpful.
Yeah,
And then the other thing, just since we're talking about it, is in that policy, I'd like a year, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Because, right, it goes by fast, so if we're in 2025, where do we cut it off? 2015,
Right.
2000,
How far back are you going? to
95, yeah, like,
display?
exactly, and so
Yeah.
when
go
that
find a
moves
team
on,
member from those teams from back then and offer it to them. That'd be kind of neat.
So,
Henry might have some thoughts on that, like what could they do with it, maybe the new field house.
North Bradford must have had something in the policy, because I know with the new building, it looks completely different than.
That's why I asked. I looked and I do.
Yeah,
And it's very,
So-
it's like 2 sentences, but it just says that they're able to.
yeah, I'd really like your direction on that, though, because I don't want anyone to feel bad that something that they held dear
Sure.
was moved.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when we couldn't find the corn sign. I don't know if any of you remember that, but, and we couldn't find it. We finally found it upstairs in what is now Eric's office and but the family was so happy we were able to locate that. So I don't want that to happen again. This district holds things very dear, and that's very important.
And that field house is huge. So if that ever gets, maybe some stuff can go out there that I'm sure I'm gonna keep, but.
That's
I want to see the rifle
compliment.
trophies. I never saw those.
So are the robotics trophies now in that case?
I went in today and Dr. Tabor has put them in there, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, they got
That's
it today.
That's
very
great.
specific spot he wanted and ideas for it.
They were so
You're
cute. We expected them to be like, we want 10 robots and they just said, we really like a trophy
Somewhere
case.
to put our trophies. And to be able to go to the Amherst
Yeah,
competition, so.
yeah,
we're
they're
working on
doing
that.
great work.
They really are.
All right. With that,
But we need more room. We just got a trophy last night.
Yeah, we do need room. Maybe
Keep 'em
another
coming.
one.
So there should be some purging, and if anything, why don't we check with like Vinyl or one of these schools that are always doing projects to make us one of those things.
yeah, I think John
You
Cross.
have to pay for materials, materials are cheap, I shouldn't say cheap, it's cheaper than going to buy one. But if they are able to make one, that'd be great
I
too.
think our wood shop could do it.
Yeah, there you go.
Part of the model, the tech.
That's a
school
great,
system.
that's a great in-school project for our
Yeah.
kids to do. And you put a plaque on it, built by the class, blah, blah, blah.
There's
It's a
just so
great thing.
room up, there's so much room on that music wall too, even if you move down the bench and.
I think that's a great idea.
No, I have one more question.
Oh, of course.
On MTA, you have revenue in-house. Does that mean revenue we're paying or revenue you get?
So you're looking at the MTA part of the budget?
104. Page 104.
Yes, so that's revenue that we, charge other districts for the kids to come.
And that fluctuates year to year based on our enrollment, or is that just?
It based on who's coming to the bottom line changes based on how many RSD 13 students are there. Because we don't pay for them to go to MTA because it's our program. So the more we have, the more staff we need, which means there's less money at the bottom line. But the more paying people you have, the more,
So that revenue is 747, 120?
yes,
Oh, for next year, anticipated for next year.
correct.
For this year, 713, 450.
How many students that?
That was
Sam's like,
anticipated.
Chomping at the bit.
Let's see if she knows.
And we're anticipating 10 RSD 13 and 12 paying students.
And it's still
Number.
$15,000 or so per student?
How much is? Sorry, that.
Oh.
The answer.
Say
No.
They were 59,550.
59,
I was gonna say 55, but yeah, no, we went up 59.
And we talked about increasing that revenue a few years ago, but we don't want to price ourselves out of the market either.
There's a little more competition now.
Much more, yeah. A lot of districts have their own transition academies, so, I mean, we're a niche and we're a great thing. So, we, will fill the seats, but a lot of districts try to keep their transition students in.
Rocky Hill is pretty proactive on that. They've been in the news an awful lot lately.
I think a lot with this Fed committee at the state, really looking at things that they're really encouraging a lot of in-house. And so a lot of was mentioned numerous times. We were a great model for looking at that. So it was pretty cool to hear it when the state brought it up.
But that's an example of your unfunded mandates, John, too, because it used to be 18 to 21, they changed it 18 to 22, then they said the end of the year you turn 22, so, you know, all that's just another cost.
What's the in-house mean? That's just how you label.
Into that was already labeled that,
Oh,
so.
that's kind of a strange label.
I don't know what else you'd call it though.
I think
Tuition.
it's because it correlates with the general fund, revenue in-house, we call it, for like, pre-K tuition.
Yeah,
and
I
that
was
stuff, so
slow
it's just the
revenue.
same line that we
Slow
use.
tuition. Just me.
And let Kim call it whatever she wants.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. Kim's done a great job. She can call it whatever she wants.
Never mind, never mind.
This way.
We appreciate your input, Bob. It was great. Thank you for sharing.
Our school's the same way. Anything you change on that.
That was all the history, yeah, so I'd rather just have to explain it every year.
Maura or Linda, do you guys have any questions?
You still there?
Nope.
I just wanted you to say hi.
Angel from.
Hi.
Hi, guys. I don't have any questions. Thanks.
All right, so we'll come back next budget session. We've got regular meeting in between. Take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.